Give you a round of applause for Patricia.
Thank you. Hi, thank you for having me here. When they talked to me about doing this and they mentioned the topic was Muse, my first thought was bullshit, because I believe I'm like more of the Thomas Edison personality of like it's 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration, because I work my butt off constantly. But then, honestly, the more I thought about it, I realized that, life is sort of a muse, and my work is really content-based. And so much of what I do really is based on trying to make meaning, make my life make sense. And I'm going to show you some images of my work, because mainly I give artist talks about who I am and what I do. And so I'm going to try to whip through it, because I have 10 minutes to share with you my deepest inspiration. So, and when your eyes start rolling, I really do tend to go on and on, because like a lot of you, I like to talk about myself. So if someone at 10 minutes goes like this to me, I'd really appreciate it, because I forgot to set my timer, although it was suggested to me that I set my timer. Thank you. Thank you. So I don't know if any one of you reads Maria Popova's Brain Pickings, thank you. So this is one of her amazing quotes, really about how the earth began. And I think I am mostly interested in the entire universe as Muse, because I'm like most of you here, I am so curious about everything, and I find myself constantly amazed and interested by whatever I see around me. And so I do read everything. I'm really interested in science. I'm really interested in nature. I'm really interested in anything new I can learn. And I've recently been reading Carl Sagan, who some of you may or may not know, but he was famous for saying billions and billions of years ago. But he has written about the pale blue dot. And what I am mostly obsessed by, really, is all the people on the planet who have ever been born and will be born, and how we each of us have this amazing individual life. And I am constantly overwhelmed and confused. If I think about every single person in this room, you guys all have as much like energy and drive as I do, right? And I can't ever grasp that, but it's so important. And when you think about all the people who have already lived and died, this is the thing that gets me going. And I want to connect with everybody. My job, I feel like, as a human being, is to just connect and make connections. And so the more I think about people, the more I try to do that. Sadly, I'm sort of an introvert. And so I'm really good at talking about connection, but actually talking to someone for more than like 5 minutes, I freak out and I leave the room. So, I'm sure there's other people here who can relate to that. I am, in looking for connections, though, the idea of a muse is, I think, what I draw from is this idea of creating at least visual connections. So you see here, it's actually Buzz Aldrin, not Neil Armstrong. And the footprints these are called the Laetoli footprints. It's in Kenya, outside of Olduvai Gorge. And these are the footprints of the first family, the early Australopithecines. This is the fossil Lucy, found in Ethiopia. And this idea of leaving footprints and human footprints and how we've been like making an impact on the planet for a really long time is important to me. I happened to marry the guy that was part of the team that found Lucy. And so I have had the influence of people talking about human evolution and how people have impacted the planet for most of my adult life. And so it's hard for me to separate and I met him because I was doing archaeology. So my life has been really impacted by the sense of the continuity of the human experience through time. And so that is the stuff that I think about, and that's what makes me make art. So these like visual connections that I'm always drawing between traditional Neolithic, well, not traditional, but Neolithic pottery, traditional textiles, a Bedouin camel bag. Everywhere you go around the planet, you see the same stuff. And when I was working as an archaeologist, I dug up all sorts of things, as archaeologists do. And it was amazing. I was working in Jordan, and it was amazing to me because the stuff that I was excavating, the little patterns on them, besides the amazing fingerprints that another human made 8,000 years ago, which was amazing, The patterns, though, were so similar to the patterns I grew up with my Swedish mother, all those little textiles. And so I have found that sort of language as a common denominator. So this is a piece I made a few years ago. I had never seen these pieces before. And these are like sort of Neolithic-ish, maybe later, maybe 12th century pieces. But you can see how my work relates to that, even though I had never seen those, because I'm a human being. And I think most of us speak the same visual language. And some of you may be architects in here, I'm not really sure, but drawing from the common language that we see across culture. So I make columns on a regular basis. I can't seem to help myself. And I think partially because we all are affected by what we see. And these are obviously aerial photographs. Because to me, this is what we do to our planet as humans, and as what I do in my work is I kind of organize my thoughts into making a piece. I think humans often organize the planet in a way. And some of you may recognize the Burning Man, which is an amazing, beautiful semicircle on the planet. And it's so incredible. When you think about Burning Man as being so kind of wacky, look how orderly it is when you look at it from space. This is one of the Supermax prisons. And it has that same kind of beautiful order, which I guess makes more sense from a prison. But I like visually how you can see on our big planet how there's a geometry that as humans we typically impose. And I find that when I'm like when I'm out of visual inspiration, when my content isn't getting me, I look at maps like this and see how things are ordered. This is the Citadel near Biel, and this has been the biggest, most constant source of inspiration for me in my work. The Citadel near Biel is the longest, most continuously inhabited area where humans have been since the Sumerians. And so since the last 12 centuries or so, someone has been living right here in the center. This is the big city of Erbil surrounding it, but this is this walled area in the middle. And when I saw that, I felt like I needed to make work that's sort of related to that site, because in many ways, a site like that synthesizes all of my ideas. The idea that humans have lived in one place for a really long time, that we've impacted the earth, and that so much of who we are is sort of lost to history, but there is this continuity. And so I made this piece over a course of a year or so. And it contains layers and layers and layers, 12 layers because of the 12th centuries or so. And each of those layers is actually hidden because so much of our history is hidden. And I think this piece is the one that kind of sent me on this journey of understanding that working with people and being impacted by people was the thing that drove me to make work. And so since that piece, I have done a series of installation-based sculptures that are either interactive or I utilize the energies of lots of folks who come to my studio and help me make hundreds of pieces, and then I assemble them. So these are all examples of installations I've done in various public places. And they have all been interactive to some extent. You can see here people picking things up and moving things around. And this had a very similar motivation. Same little pieces, those little cylinders, I've used them in a number of places. I don't have any left, sadly. But for a while, I had about 1,000 of them. And so I used them over and over again. And to me, they were symbolic of how people bring culture with them if they move. Like, I'm interested in immigration and migration, mostly migratory patterns. And so when people move from point A to point B, they bring with them their creative energy and their ideas and their technology. And so I've used these little cylinders as a symbol, in a sense, about technology and about creativity. So when I've done installations like this, I've asked people to move the pieces around, to restack them, in a way impacting culture. Thank you. I think that because I work with material a lot, the other thing is, I was telling these guys earlier that I teach, and sometimes I'll have a student who just, the first month of class, they do nothing because they're waiting for the Muse. And I really feel like the best way to start is just to start. And so when I'm feeling a little like, oh, what should I do today? I just take out some material and I start either dripping something or pouring something or squishing something. And it is where I find my most comfortable place. My most uncomfortable place is finding content that I feel is relevant and meaningful. Because I feel like I can make pretty things really without too much of a problem, but I want my work to have more meaning. Otherwise, I honestly feel like it's not worth getting up in the morning. And so I drive myself now towards making work that is based on this is Aleppo, destruction of Aleppo. I'm making work more and more now that is based really on content. And so I mostly source, I'm a news addict and, as I said, a science junkie. And I try to do pieces that relate to making people feel their humanity and hopefully being more tolerant of the humanity of others. That's my goal. And also trying to be vulnerable when I'm out in public. And it's easy, I can talk about science actually with a great amount of facility and I can sound really smart. But honestly, that's just a veneer, right? The thing that creativity about and the muse for me is actually, feeling exposed, and which I do right now, frankly. I have goosebumps. But I'm sweating, in my adorable jacket, But, it is making a connection with people that I think is the most significant. And that is where I draw my inspiration. So this is what I do. See all these things. Thank you.
I want to talk to you about this week, because in this week is a good encapsulation of how important harmony is for me in order to keep me focused and keep me being able to chase that muse feeling, being able to chase my flow. So this week we have a printer. Printer driver was not working. It only works with Windows 8. I have computer issues that no one can help me with. I have a printer that's ancient that no one wants to help me with. So I call my friend up and we go get barbecue, because I'm not in any space to make good decisions, to get work done, to be my best self, to be productive. So at the end of that barbecue, I told him, oh, my shop flooded the other night. I have my letterpress, it's on wooden skids. I've been meaning to move this thing for like 10 years. I need to get it up off the ground. It's got water underneath it. He said, there's a caster place down the street, right from the barbecue place. So we went down the street, found the right casters, came home, he helped me lift it, and put it on. I can move it around. It's 700 pounds. I can't move it by myself, but now I can, it's easy. But it took me 10 years to get to that point. So harmony. That brings me back to harmony. And in the last year and a half, 2 years, that's been really important to me. I'm 43 this year. I'm not getting any younger. I was really out of shape. I wasn't taking care of myself. I had no balance. I felt like I'm a creative person. I need to push further into what I'm doing to be successful. I got to bury myself in it. But what I realized at 43, I have an 8-year-old, I have an 11-year-old, I have a wife, I have a mortgage, I have payroll, I have all these things I got to take care of. So for me, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, going to the gym, that gives me something to hang the rest of my day on. It's not for everybody, but it forces me to take care of something in the morning, get home, drink some protein because I'm not going to eat anything, have my coffee, drink 4 glasses of water, talk to my kids, take them to school, and then get started. So, bottoms up. I can make some fun things. That's what I do. I make things. I made this on Tuesday. Jen told me, I think 100% that witch. I think that'd be funny. Make a shirt for that. You can do something quick, right? No, I can't do something quick. I can never do something quick. I can try to do something quick. This is number 4. I did 4 things. This was number 4. It's the one that I like the best. She's like, give me that candy. I like that. I like it saying something, right? Last week, somebody asked me to donate a page for a coloring book. I had 2 pieces that I did a year ago I combined those two pieces and made a fun coloring book page for them. That workout sets the stage for my day. I get my sleep. I get started. I have an excess of mental energy. I have an excess of physical energy. I burn really hot. You can tell probably by me talking to you right now. I need that. I need that to get my mind in order. I can start my day then. I can sit and hand cut paper stencils with an X-Acto knife for 3 hours if I need to. But where does it get me? The culmination of those things, of those little steps over time, creates that harmony for me. Look at what I've done over the years. Like, to me, that's exciting. When I go back and I start pulling things out, I'm like, I made this, I made that, I made this, I did that. I like making things. I like seeing my things on a shelf when I go into a store. That's exciting to me. Every hat that goes out the door, I make. Every single one. If you've seen one, if you've worn one, I made it. Every once in a while, yes, I have to take that mental break. I have to have fun, set some type. I see something that's exciting to me. I want to play with it. And I think you sent me something, Gigi. It was like some font that had this real kind of thick and thin, those chunky serifs. Exactly. So I was just messing around with it, and I found the right spot for it, the right design. But it just took me rolling with it. But I'm in my flow state. I have my harmony down. I've found my muse. My muse is control, because I want to be uncontrolled when I'm working. I don't want to have to worry about anything else besides making it what I need to make it. Then I take a break, and the cat chews on the dog. And that puts me in this great space. I'm having a coffee, cat's messing with the dog. He chases her, she chases him. It's hilarious. It's Schmenry, Schmoopy and Henry. And so my wife calls them Schmenry because they're in love. So this brings me to what I did yesterday. So I got my workout in the morning, so I'm calm. I'm not overwhelmed by all the things I have to do, because I work for myself. I work from home. I have no one to tell me when to start, when to stop, what to do, where to go, and how to do it. I printed 5 different colors of this poster 6 weeks ago. It's been sitting on my desk. I finally took photographs yesterday. I haven't posted them on the site yet. That's coming when I get to it. I got stickers in. I've been obsessed with cassette tapes lately. Did a fun sticker design. Get stickers in. I always get jazzed about stickers. I traded out design services with a sculptor who makes molds. I designed a cassette tape looking tile to be a backsplash for my entertainment center. And then I had him show me how to cast them out of urethane resin. So I learned a whole new process and product because I found someone who does it well, and we traded services, and it was good for everybody. And so it's exciting for me. I've created more work for myself. That's always exciting. It's not really exciting. It's frustrating at times, but it's very exciting. But there's a whole process to this then too. Am I going to cast one and be done with it in the same day? No. It takes time. It's got to cure. I've got to clean it. I've got to sand it. That's the blank. It's a 12 by 20. It's 3 layers. At its deepest, it's 3/4 of an inch thick. And it just makes sense to me. Yeah, that's fun. That's a good blank canvas for me. So then what am I going to do? I'm going to spend an exorbitant amount of time making custom stencils to fit on the damn thing. So not only am I designing the stencils, I'm cutting them out of vinyl. I got to order my vinyl. Where the hell do I get the vinyl from? Okay, well, it's glossy. I don't want glossy. I want matte. Well, they don't sell matte everywhere. So I got to track down somebody in town that has matte vinyl. Well, what thickness is it? It's not the right thickness. There's a million little steps to everything, and I can get overwhelmed and say, fuck it. Or I can put it down and move on to the next thing and come back to it. And then I have my finished product, and I'm patient enough, and my son's helping me, and I'm not saying, get out of the way, I don't have any time for this, because I'm patient, I'm calm. Yesterday, so this is a perfect encapsulation of what I'm talking about. I put something out in the world a couple of years ago. Over time, like, these things start returning to me. This year, Jen says, I want to do some Halloween stuff. Quick, let's make some stickers. Great, stickers, they're easy. Well, I can't just pick up the artwork that I did last year, no. I pick it up, but then I got to start messing with it. So I'm adding all these details in. But look at the result, it's so fun. And that's the point of it. I want to have that, like, kind of retro look, funky, like, stylish, pop colors. And then I'm pressing hats again. I'm doing something that's not creative. I'm burning my fingers for 2 hours on a heat press. And then I got to jump on this poster. This poster, oh my God. It's so, like, they sent me a list of 15 buildings they wanted to use. And they're all in different places. How do you compose something into one? So it took time to do that. But I'm in no shape to do any of that unless I have harmony, unless I'm balanced, unless I'm setting the table every day to make good decisions and to make great work. I have to put myself into that position every day. And I don't do it by being out of balance and staying up till like 4 o'clock in the morning every night. I have my schedule. Somebody who stays up late, that might be your flow. Damn it. All right, so I'm gonna buzz through. So I'm working on a poster now for Chandler. This is just the sketch phase. It took 3 rounds to get there, just to make sure they had everything they needed. Now I'm getting more into the detail. You can see I'm in the weeds. It's okay, I'm gonna be okay. That's what I have to tell myself. It's gonna be okay. And I'm working on some projects. I did a collaboration last year with a fireplace maker, Modfire. And so I did some design for him. I designed the face, and he cut it out, and they had it at Tiki Oasis last year. It was amazing. So this year, Tiki Oasis, again, they called me up. And so I'm like, yes, I can absolutely do an invite for that poster. So there's the sketch. There's me doing a lot of stuff. Doing a lot of stuff. But I've got all these things that I've been working on, all these Haver blocks, all these plant textures, all these little dots and patterns that I'm repeating, all these little faces, all that stuff, all that symmetry, even my name. I don't even know why I did that, but why not, right? Why the hell not? So the bottom line is, whatever you need to do to get yourself in a good creative place, do that. You know who you are. Like, listen to yourself. Be the best version of you. Get after it. That's all I got.
Hi. Good morning. I am not a morning person, so yeah, good. I'm proud of you. You got here. All right. So my name's Lauren Lee. I'm a mural artist and a public artist. I'm really just an artist, to tell you the truth. And as we were talking earlier, they're like, well, was painting your, thing? And I used to be a photographer when I was younger. I experienced a lot of success with photography, and it scared me because I was like 18. And so I ended up just letting all that go and exploring other things. But, and then I became a painter. I became an high school art teacher for 5 years. And then during that time, I started painting. And I didn't, at ASU, you have to be a major in order to be you have to be a major in order to take a painting class. It's very elite. So I never took a painting class, even though I got a degree in art. And so when I started teaching, they were like, oh, just start experimenting, with some of this old paints. And so that's what I started doing. And so I'm self-taught in terms of painting. We're going to start with some of these paintings. So this is from one of my last major solo shows called Wahe Guru. That is a term. I do Kundalini yoga, and use a lot of Sikh prayers. And Wahe Guru means the ecstatic totality of God. And so that's like quite a thing to try and contemplate. But I started making these paintings that were kind of bringing in some of the things that inspire me, I guess. So that's like the topic. And, I'm inspired by the human as a natural object, in the world, but that we are surrounded by created constructs of our mind. And so when we get really separated from our natural self, then we get really ill, and we get, mentally ill. And we live in that time where most people are living in mental illness. And so, my work has been a lot about, reconnecting to the universe and a higher power. And so like a lot of these, like where I add these geometric sort of stripes and like these energy vortexes, and like, how do I enter into this new state of mind? For me, a lot of inspiration comes through visioning. So I'm kind of like, we're all like this, every artist is kind of the same. You got that control, then you got the action, and for me, like a lot of my work starts in my spirit, because I've gone years of not making art before. Not now, because I'm a professional artist, and so I would be homeless. And so, but, I know what it is to not express the creative vision and not to have a vision, And so, during that time, which was a really dark time in my life, in my, my quarter life crisis or whatever, in my early 20s, I, was very agoraphobic. So my anxiety levels, my fear had gotten to a point where I couldn't really leave the house. And so what ended up happening was that things outside started being really surreal. Like, I'm used to this box that I live in, that I understand, these four corners. And there's this quote by Ani DeFranco who said, I hope I can remember, because now I'm like, oh my God, I'm in a crowd. Why am I talking to all these people? But she said something like, oh, well, I'll remember it. But basically, she says, like, I live in a world of parallel lines and of, four corners and these, these straight lines. And she said, who says I like right angles? These are not my laws. These are not my rules. And so I don't, necessarily like right angles. And so this idea that, as humans, we want to control by being like, this is how you build things. And like, the natural world is not like that. When I teach people how to paint, when I have assistants, they want to do everything so perfect. They want to have the tape. They want to have, all that sounds like that is not the way nature is. I say you got to start moving your body like this when you paint, or else it's going to look unnatural. Anyway, so the idea of nature becoming surreal, even though that is what I spring forth from, became kind of a muse for me. And when I got better spiritually and mentally, I started taking a lot of inspiration from nature, And I used to hate Southwestern art. Like when I was a kid, I was like, oh, this is the worst, taupe, and then all of a sudden I was like making Southwestern art, and I would be out there, and I would be outside, and like now that I could travel and stuff, and I'd be like, oh my God, I'm in a world of patterns. Like everything's a pattern, There's not one leaf just like floating on a tree. It's like this unified vision of leaves, and each one is unique, like how each of us has a unique, fingerprint. How bizarre that if you really like just meditate on that deeply, you like kind of get blown away existentially. You're like, what is this? What are we in, this world? So I do a lot of visioning. So what that means is I will literally like sit and I will go into a meditative state. I do a lot of rituals. So I light candles. I'll do a prayer. I'll do some chanting. I'll do other things like that. And in my little home, which is like a genie bottle full of all these treasures that I find everywhere, and I love my home now. Now my home is a place where I get a rest from adventuring. That's sort of how I have to see that now. Anyways, and so I sit there and I have my dog, who's like my little spirit animal, and I call him Waheguru sometimes. And I go into this visioning state, and I usually, like when I do a mural, I'll go and visit the site. And so I can see, like, I'm like a psychic that goes there, what do they need? Like, what's missing? And most of the time, all the time, it's the humanity of the space is missing, or the spirit, there's no soul. We feel alone. We feel all this stuff. So I'm like, how do I bring that to this space? How do I bring what they're missing here? And increasingly in this time when we don't even live in the real physical world, we're living in a virtual reality, where we have this like kind of psychotic break between who I am online, and then like this person, who am I in 3D, So, when I did the Waheguru show, I listened to chant music through the entire time. You chant Waheguru, so there's a bunch of chants online, and I painted to that, and I remember one of my friends came to the studio and she stood in front of it, and she's done Kundalini yoga with me. She's done chanting and stuff, and she started to cry. And I was like, okay, cool. We're there. We're there. And I wanted to talk about the way energy moves in the world, you know, like some things, so I did several vortexes, and then I did some which is healing channel energy. And I love the color pink. I feel like sometimes my career is just about integrating pink into the urban environment, you know? And I was like, wow, this is where my feminism has led me, you know? This is my form of feminism. They're like, I'll meet with these, like, you know, I call it, sometimes they're like the silverbacks, you know, developers. They'll show up and they'll have like 10 assistants, you know, and I'll know, I'm like, that's the guy, you know, this guy, he owns this block. And I'll be like, they'll be like, well, what are you thinking? I'm like, well, what about pink? You know? So anyways. So I wanted to include some of these pieces. This is kind of an interesting, actually I was gauging the room this morning. I'm still kind of waking up, but I was like, are they ready for this? Well, I hope so. I found these at my dad's house, and I was looking at them, and it was like meeting an old friend. I was like, I think I made this, and I did make this. When I was 12, my family's separated. My mom lives in Yuma, Arizona. My dad lives in LA. And his wife loves art, and she would take us to art museums, all the places, bohemian districts of LA, everything when I was a kid. And they have an art music room, and she has all this Cahill Gibran poetry, you know, that she took out of books and framed, and there's all these musical instruments you could play and stuff, and it's like this little special room, a room of one's own. And sorry, feminist joke. And anyways, and so as a child, I guess, as like a 12-year-old, I'd found these velvet framed things. We used to go to these big flea markets in LA. And then I made this collage, and then I guess I drew on it and stuff. And I made this watercolor background. And wow, I'm close. All right. Anyways, and then this is a piece I made, I think, last year. And so, you know, it's probably a 20-year difference between these two things. But the human as a natural object, especially the female experience, you know, has been something that, this is part of something I call the Surrender series, and where I integrate bodies into natural spaces. Sometimes there's mountains, sometimes there's other things. And this idea of our inherent true powerlessness on this planet, you know, as just sort of being here without our consent, I guess. And the reality of some of that. So I'm gonna just turn this off, but I know how much time I have. Most of the time, actually, you know what's kind of interesting though, these pieces are the ones that are most coveted by the people who collect my work. So it's kind of interesting because we think, well, the commercial stuff, the stuff that's more palatable, that might be what people, no. I got probably like 12 inquiries like, are you selling that? Are you selling that? Are you selling that? You know, this is actually my bedroom. So it's now like, you know, I always keep pieces so that I have that. You know, I need to make sure that I'm living in a world that I can live in before I can begin to share parts of my spirit, you know, with other people. So, but this is typically mostly the type of public work I do. These are paintings, and, you know, I focus on the Arizona desert and the geometry and the patterning, you know, pattern form of control in some ways, or form of balance, you know, like that we live in a patterned universe. That kind of makes me feel secure, you know, in knowing that there's order in the universe. But then I also love like parts like this where I like kind of paint dance, you know, and can put in these things. And I know that God in the universe is freer than maybe what we think, you know. So it's always a conversation for me between me and whatever made these. And it's like, I'll be like, wow, God, you're good. You know, like that's kind of my constant painting conversation when I get to see the little subtleties of the light out fractures on certain objects and the ways that it's playing with form and the need for shadow in order to perceive light. Like we have to have sort of that balance. So anyways, and then how these translate sometimes into large scale public art is sort of this sort of work. And like this was at Madison Square Garden, and this was through the city of Scottsdale commissioned me to create these paintings and then put them all over Penn Station, and it was an immersive design project. This was at the LA Fitness in Tempe. It's, if you go down there, that's on either side. It's a mirrored image. So this is me. So you can kind of see the size. And then I guess I just added this randomly. This is where I've been going recently, has just been on this like total journey, because I know how to do something and make it so it's perfect. That's part of my OCD that'll just, until it's perfect. But to be looser is difficult and beautiful, and it's important too to be able to. This was supposed to be a different painting, but as this processed, and I was like, I'm gonna add like koi fish and like interpretive work, and my assistant was like, just watch. She's like, do you just want me back up? I'm like, yeah, just let me do whatever it is that's coming out, and it spoke to me in a different way. And so we get to follow the muse. For me, the muse is God, I guess, really. And so that's all I have.
Number one trick for getting back into your creative flow when you feel like you've lost your muse.
Do you want to take that, Lauren?
Sure. Okay. So her question was, what is your number one trick? Is this right? Okay. What is your number one trick to getting back into your creative flow when you've lost it? I was just telling this woman here is that one of the tricks I like to do is I do a lot of music meditation. So if I find a song that emotionally touches me, and actually I went through this period where I was watching a lot of like 90s grunge, live performances. I forget what it was called on MTV. Used to play that. Unplugged, yes. And so I was watching Eddie Vedder, and I was like, wow, I mean, we are just transmitting emotion in art. That's all we're really doing through dance or through singing and poetry. So anyway, so what I do is I find a song right now, my favorite song, it's called This Is Us Colliding by Taos. I want to do a show where people have to I'm going to have like a bunch of iPods, and you have to like listen to it while you look at the work that was created from this. But so what I do is I just, I play that music very loud, and on repeat, and I wait, for the image, the colors, like how does this feel? What textures are this? What environment is this? I kind of create a surreal environment around the song. And so that's been something that I like to do. It's a little trick that can transport me to an artistic space for me.
I find that mostly I go to material if I don't know where to go. It's been a hard year. My family's had a lot of illness this year, and so it's been easier to not be in my studio because I've had obligations. And so I'll think to myself, I'll just work on the computer today. That's okay. And then, of course, I just do bullshit. Nothing good happens. So I put on my work clothes. I walk out my front door. I walk into my studio door, which I could actually access from inside the house. But I take out my material. And usually within an hour, I'm okay. It's not like I'm being brilliant necessarily, but at least I'm doing something. And I feel like I'm learning something that I wouldn't have learned if I honestly was just looking at images on the computer, which for me is not, I am super materially based. And unless I'm making something, I don't really feel as if what I'm doing is valuable, I think.
Both of those are great. Just to add to that, I would say sleep for me.
Sleep is good.
If I get a good amount of sleep, I'm just mentally there. Second, I would say music, definitely. Organization, menial tasks. If I have creative work to do and I'm not in the headspace to do it, I'll do menial tasks until there are none left to do, until my space is pristine and clean. And then I'll get back on it and try it again. So it's just about trying to dive into it. If it's not happening, it's not happening. But yeah, definitely music. I mean, when I was doing that tiki poster yesterday, it was like heavy metal and tiki stuff. I was singing kooky loud to myself, and I was listening to Royal Blood. So it was just I was just trying to pace. But that was a totally different headspace, but it's the same kind of thing. So.
I saw another hand over here. Yes, go ahead.
What scares you? What gives you the most fear in the creative sphere?
What scares me? What scares all of us? I mean, I'm scared constantly on a daily basis. I think sometimes the first title of my talk actually was "Terror and Sweat Are My Muse." Because I think I'm an anxious person. I think in a lot of ways, but what scares me work-wise is really, I'm afraid right now. I mean, I had an amazing run for a couple of years. I had amazing shows. I had tons of great commissions, and then my life kind of collapsed. And right now, my personal life, not my body, but my family's life collapsed, and I don't know if I can get it back. I have no idea if is the phone going to ring tomorrow with finally another museum show? I don't know. I'm terrified of failure. That's my biggest. I'm terrified of failure because I am so ambitious and so motivated by success and people's, thinking I'm amazing. That when I can't say, oh yeah, I've got a museum show next year, then I'm like, am I worth anything? That's my terror. It's really awful to admit this, honestly, but here I am.
It's not exciting, but it's anxiety, money anxiety, constantly. If I'm not doing something, if I'm not billing, I'm not getting paid. I haven't had a regular paycheck in 20 years. So if that's not motivating with a mortgage and kids, then I don't know what is. So it's constantly driving me, and probably my biggest fear at the same time. So.
Oh, cool. My biggest fear, I think, right now would be that I'm not apocalyptically ready. Like I have this vision of what I could do. I want to get this vintage trailer and I want to deck it out and I want to remodel it and my friends have some plot of land and I want to go all the way, but that part of me that wants to continue to soothe society, it's not that bad. It's going to be fine. That part of me holds me back from really just being totally in the present moment of what's happening on the planet and as a person. So that would be, I would say truly, that's one of my bigger fears. And then as far as with work, money is an exchange of energy. And so one of my fears around my painting career, my life would be that I compromise and make okay work that's saleable and commercial in exchange for my spirit. That's something I would say. So I work actively against that by attempting to always try and put authenticity and presence in my work so that I don't have that feeling when I look back on some projects and go yeah, that was okay. Being around other people who hustle, artists are hustlers, and I like that. I have an assistant who just got a huge project, and she was crying on the phone last night. We were both finalists, and I was so happy she got this, and I was that hunger, I need to remember that because that's a good feeling to want something that bad, So.
Thanks for being vulnerable.
Yeah.
Anyone else? I think I saw. Yeah, go for it.
Do you guys incorporate looking at other artists' work or reading other artists' stories into your process?
Good question.
The question is whether we incorporate other artists, looking at other people's work into our process. And I look at art constantly. Anytime I travel, I look at art constantly. It's the thing that I'm most interested in at all. And I think I bring the motivation of other artists into my work in a way. I'm not a quoter of other people's work necessarily, but the idea that there's just, listen to these, wasn't today cool so far? Because I really like listening to artists talk because the process is interesting and how they thought. Who knew listening to these two what their work was, what they're going to say. And anytime I look at art, I feel that same kind of that's cool, and I find that inspiring.
Yes, I look at art all the time. I think it's Julia Cameron, who's a writer on creativity, who I really love, and I recommend reading any of her books. She talks about filling the well with visual images, and so for visual artists. And so, my Instagram is full of other artists. I barely follow my family, So I just follow all these artists, and I'm just constantly seeing the way other people are doing things, content, design. For me, in this art climate, it's a design game. it is really not about necessarily being able to execute, although there are people who are very good at executing very well. But I do think that a lot of it's a design game, you know, and so I love designers. I follow a ton of tattoo artists because I love that simplistic design, and then also, you know, photorealism and stuff. So yes, that would be me.
It definitely factors into my work. I do come from a design background as well, and I'm very frequently approached about doing things in different styles, and I love that. I like the challenge of putting things in a context. So yeah, I look at other people's art for context. If somebody's working in a style that I want to emulate and I want it to look like it needs to be authentic. It needs to be done in the same style, and it needs to be done the right way. So you adopt those techniques, and that's what's exciting to me about this. Like, I'm totally down with everybody having like their own unique, authentic look, feel, experience, but that's not me. I'm a person who wants to journey. I want to travel. I want to try new things. I can't stay doing my thing. My thing is all things, if that makes sense. So the more, I love getting all that until it's too much, and then I have to shut it off. It's like I was watching The Dark Crystal, and power's coming, it's too much, it's drawing too much out of me, I gotta cut it off to get back to myself and like be like, okay, I'm overwhelmed. I need to like make this my thing now. I've seen all that stuff, I've taken it in, and now I need to make it mine, channel it. Sorry.
Okay, we have time for one more.
Can I do a quick follow?
Yeah, go.
As a follow-up to that, like, if all things are your thing, like, where do you go? Like, what's leading you as a creative?
Me?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
All of you, too.
Joy, passion. I spent, on that tiki poster, I spent 3 hours on Tuesday, spent 3 hours on Wednesday, and yesterday, I'm ashamed to say I spent probably 8 hours on it. And I just saw everything else on my calendar, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm not gonna do that today. Jen, can you pick up the kids? This is what I'm into now. So I allow myself that time, and then make it what it is, and then I move on to the next thing. Man, I'm so into it. And then next week, I probably won't remember that I did it. But when it comes back around in April, I'm gonna be super excited. Yes, I have more stuff. I can pull things out of there and use them for other things. I'm creating all these assets. I'm creating all these things that I can use and utilize. So that's what's exciting to me and drives me. So.
I'll invite you guys too. Sorry.
Sorry.
No. I'm motivated very differently. My work is so much about, trying to create connections with people. I just don't think about my work. I have definitely a style in my work too, which I have had since I was a child, practically. And sort of like Lauren, though, my career's been forever. I mean, I started making art when I was a kid, and I've been doing it ever since. And so my career has gone through lots of different phases. And I guess at different times, I have tried to adapt myself into certain arena. But I have had the great good fortune, actually since the economic crisis in the 80s, when my work stopped selling. And so suddenly I was like, oh, I guess I'll just make what I want to make. And it turned out what I wanted to make was, work that was less design-oriented, more intentional, deeper, more content-based. And I just kept on driving deeper. When I talk to my students about trying to find meaning in their work, my general direction is to, go inward more deeply and to figure out what really motivated you to start that. You're making something. Well, if you can't figure out to make it red or blue, well, then let's figure out why you made that in the beginning. And so that's what I do to myself when I'm like, oh, should this be red or green? I try. I mean, I don't really use red or green, but I am lately. I think more. I just try to get more deeply within myself.
I would say that what moves me now, I like art as a form of secret telling, and before that used to be really shocking art, like when I was in college, it'd shock you. And now it's more like the shocking secret is that we are so much more similar than we are different. And so when someone can connect to my work, which is very weird in real life because a lot of people know me that I don't know, and I'm like, okay, but they deeply connected to me, you know, through my art. But so when we connect in that way, I think that that can be very healing for people to understand that we are deeply more alike than we are different. And so when I'm making work that is surprising, or I love scale. Scale's rad, because someone stands in front of, you know, a 3-story mural and they go, how in the world did this person do this, you know? And so it's like when you watch a dancer and you're like, how is this possible? But you know it's possible because you're watching them do it. So I like that. I like that idea of showing people that, you know, there is so much possibility for us to share, you know? Yeah.
Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause.